Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Great Days Outdoors magazine, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We have a great show lined up, but first, let's hear who is making the show possible this week. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Great Days Outdoors magazine. Are you looking for that one-of-a-kind gift for Father's or Mother's Day? If so, head on over to greatdaysoutdoors.com and check out the best gifts for Outdoorsman 2021. We've curated a bunch of unique gift ideas to help you find an awesome gift for the Outdoorsman on your list. Just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/best gifts for Outdoorsman to check it out. And also brought to you by Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks. Save time and money by buying from the most reliable manufacturer on the Gulf Coast. Buy it today, pick it up today. They offer 20 Sherwin-Williams colors to choose from and have a 40-year warranty. Baker Metal and Dixie Supply, 2 names, same great service. With the addition of their new store in Cantonment, Florida, they now have 8 locations to serve you. Dixie Supply and Baker Metalworks, your metal roofing headquarters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Butch Theory, and I am joined today in the studio with Captain Bobby Abruscato as my co-host. How we doing today, Cap?
Man, you got my hands tied behind my back. Keep me away from the knobs and the dials and stuff like that.
The knobs and the dials have gone way down since we first started this thing, though.
Yeah.
We've got it pretty streamlined now. Gosh, I still have some stuff in my office that I was looking at the other day. Man, we used to have big, giant motherboards and switches and multiple monitors, but now I can pretty much do this anywhere.
You got it down. You look like you know, kind of like me typing now. I still have to look at the keyboard, but you're all doing it without even looking at it.
Typing and doing it all at once.
Yeah.
I wish. But yeah, we got it.
You're amphibious, man. You can do it with both hands.
I don't think that's the word you're looking for, but I like it. We're going to have Captain Patric Garmeson on here in a minute. There's not a whole lot going on in the offshore world. When you can get out there, it's good. But man, look today, look what we got. There hadn't been a whole lot of days in between where it was much better than this.
That's right. Yeah. Fortunately from the inshore standpoint, as long as it's not lightning is about the only thing that keeps us at the dock.
Right.
So fortunately we can fish in it and you kind of expect it this time of year as far as the wind goes, and within reason, the weather, the rain, you can fish in a certain level of rain and be comfortable. We tournament fish in anything except lightning. But, as long as we don't have that, we can get it out. So that's where I don't envy having to be an offshore guy as much as I love trying to learn how to offshore fish a little bit.
Yeah.
The fact that we can go a lot of times, maybe sometimes when you might not be able to go offshore, especially in the spring, it's going to blow in the spring. It's going to.
Yep.
And I said for a long time, if you're waiting for the wind to quit blowing in the spring, you might as well take up bowling because you ain't going fishing. I can tell you, but if you learn how to use it, and like we were talking about before we went on the air, I look forward to some wind within, 10 to 20 knots is great with me. You got to have it this time of year if you're fishing shallow stuff, because if it gets slick, I mean, it's hard to catch them when it gets slick.
And the gnats too.
Oh my gosh. Not to even mention the bugs, man. Woo, I'll tell you, I have tried everything. I react poorly with DEET. Anything with DEET in it affects me. So I have tried all sorts of stuff and to keep them off, and but I carry gallons of it on the boat, and it nothing really gets rid of those things. No. I'm telling you, they're going to be around and may keep them maybe from biting you a little bit, but they're going to be in your hair and your beard.
I don't know that I've ever. My mom still swears on Skin So Soft.
Well, and it's as good as anything, but nothing.
I think it just makes them stick to you where they can't bite you. But I guess that's a win too. You know,
that's it. And all it takes, it doesn't take a gale force wind.
No,
a 5-knot wind will take just
bit.
A little breath of wind is all it takes.
Yep.
But the spring is when they're the worst, and then we've had the rain that we've had in the last few weeks or month. I think that compounds it too, but it's always during the spring is when they're so bad, and so.
Yeah, a lot of sitting water for sure.
Yeah. And even when we get to the docks in the morning, man, you're just praying that those people be on time. So, I'll go sit out in the river. I'm not going to sit at that dock if there's no wind. Oh, you get torn up, man. So the only other thing that works 100% against them is clothes. So you're wearing long pants, which you don't want to this time of year, and socks and gloves and everything else.
No doubt.
But the other thing, the fish been biting as good as the gnats. So that's the positive, So we've had some really good trips. Numbers are no problem. We're catching tons of fish, just lots of fish, lots of action. I love the spring. I love it all, but I love the springtime fishing where we're, there's always some action going on. You're rarely having little slow periods. Now, again, I haven't been breaking any state records size wise, except for like big bull reds. These big bull reds, I don't even know where these. I've seen them good, but they're all over the place as you experienced. And even on the inshore side, I've never caught as many, just trout fishing. All of a sudden, and I'm not talking about a 22 or 24 inch slot. I'm talking about these big 30. Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we're catching on little popping cork rigs, so you talk about World War III, but as long as I've been doing this, I don't remember catching. As every trip we've caught at least 2 and sometimes 6,
that's awesome.
And just out of the middle of nowhere,
right.
So it's been good. I'm excited about the numbers of fish that are around. There's a lot of fresh water that has come down the bay, which has forced us, west of down into the sound, which stays really clear. Even when we get a lot of local rain, you still get good, clear, salty water, and the fish stay put, so that's where I've been spending most of my time. And we had a really good topwater trip one day last week. It was my first really effort on topwater. We've always throw it a little bit, but I had a group that said, man, we ain't fished with cork since we were 12 years old. Take them off or putting pop. I said, all right. I said, I'm going to keep one tied on for me because that's how we're going to put the fish in the boat. Yeah. And we ended up having a really good, exceptionally good topwater morning. As a matter of fact, it was so good to where the guy, it was 3 of us, and we had our 18 before the sun cleared the trees.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And one of the guys was flying out later that day, and he went ahead and switched his flight, and I dropped him off at 7:45 in the morning, and we caught every one of our fish on topwater. So
you can't argue with that.
Yeah, and again, they weren't wall hangers, but they were, 18 to 21 or 22 inch fish, and
good grade of fish.
Oh yeah, it was good quality fish, and again, being all on top water was a blast. So,
so what made you go to top water? You think the water temperatures are?
Well, it is. This is a top water time of the year. It's when you get in this water temperature range, which it was 68. It was last day I fished was yesterday, and it was 68 to 70. When I finished up, and that's just kind of that 68 to 72. I fish it year round,
right.
Except maybe during the dead of winter, I'll always try and find some opportunity to throw a top water. But this in the fall to me is prime top water time. Right now, the fish that I'm around are really on small. There's no shrimp, but they're on small glass minnows. So it's still kind of hard to get them to hit a top water. But
sure.
Again, you get around the right group of fish, and the fish we caught on the trip yesterday, we caught all on corks, but on voodoos, I was wishing we were throwing top water because these were some really best quality trout. I've, even though we caught 100+ trout, we had some really quality fish mixed in with them.
I should have tried some top water yesterday. Dad and I went exploring before we went out and did the Dixie bar shuffle.
Yeah.
We went over, which I never, ever do. And he doesn't either. We just kind of were exploring. He got a new 24 Blazer Bay, and we went over to the east side of the bay, kind of over the St. Andrews area. They call it St. Andrews
little
Bay.
Point clear, yeah.
Yeah, little point clear. And it was mullet. I mean, everywhere. Is it? I mean,
that's usually something I like to look for,
I was throwing a slick lure a little bit early. We had some live shrimp and we tried and had a little bit of success. So I just started throwing a slick. I was like, man, there's too many mullet here. Why would they eat this slick lure?
Yeah,
I mean, it was insane, the mullet.
The worst recipe you can get as a fisherman is to be around a few fish and a lot of bait. You want to be around a lot of fish and a little bit of bait. That's why that's when they're more willing to eat your bait.
I don't know. I just wasn't expecting to see all those mullet there. And of course the porpoises showed up.
Oh, well, that'll take care of it. I don't care how good it is.
I mean, they were doing like the creating a tidal wave thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
You
pack it up. We're hosed. Exactly.
You pack it up and go. Those fish, they're never going to bite, especially in the shallow stuff.
Yeah.
They're not going to. And even in the deep stuff, they don't either. But that shallow stuff, you get them porpoises around.
They were fired up.
I tell everybody, it's like 3 things that'll ruin a trout bite are people, porpoises, and sharks. That'll ruin it every time,
Yep, no doubt. All right, man. Well, I say we get Captain Patric Garmeson in here. Let's see what he's been up to, and we'll just kind of compare you guys' notes. I know y'all have been doing different things in different areas, and we'll just get the inshore report from both of you guys and go from there. All right, welcome back to the show, Captain Patric. How we doing today, buddy?
Man, I'm doing well. I had some customers today that were a little concerned about the weather, and I assured them. I said, well, we got enough time to get something done, and they caught a bunch of redfish, had quote unquote the best fishing trip of their life.
All right.
So
we love hearing that.
That's right. That's a good thing to hear.
Love hearing
that. I think it was a huge success. So anyway, once I got done cleaning the boat and dancing around in the rain a little bit, I had to get home, get a nice warm shower.
I bet.
So
well, you made a better call. You made a better call on the weather than I did. I wish when I was looked at this morning, I was like, man, I should have gone today. Golly, and
guess it started pouring here probably about 11.
Yeah, you could have gotten in Patrick did. You could have gotten it in this morning, that's for sure.
Yep, we shut it down. I took a look at the weather. I was on the east side of the bay, and I took a look at the weather. We started hearing a little more thunder rumbles. It wasn't like claps of thunder. We just started hearing the rumbles, and I looked at the radar, and it was like perfectly on the western edge of the bay. And I said, all right,
that's close enough.
I think we got a good dose of it. Let's take it to the house. So we wrapped it on up.
Nice. Dang, that's great, man.
Yeah. New boat's looking good, man. I saw you out on the Dixie bar yesterday. That was fun.
Dude, that was
I hadn't done that in a long time. And to top it off, I was even with my dad. So that was fun. That
was good to see y'all. So man, I get the rare occurrence to be able to go out and go fishing on my own. And typically when I'm on my own, and if I find some bull reds or something, I'm usually catch 2 or 3, take some pictures. All right, now let's take it to the house or go do something else or whatever. But I had the mission that morning where the Mississippi hatchery has hired me to go, and we're doing this bull red collection for those guys. And we ran out, found a school of fish within about 20 minutes. We boated 4 of them really quick, put them in the boat, put them in the live wells, and hauled butt back to Billy Goat Hole, dropped them off. And the guy was like, man, that was great. Thanks. And he was headed back to Mississippi. And I had Zach Jessup from L&M Marine on the boat with me. And I looked at him. I was like, well, I'd planned on fishing till about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock today. What you got? And he's like, nothing. I said, well, you want to go stick a few more fish? He's like, yeah, well, let's do it. And so we rode back across and caught 2, did some FaceTime or some Facebook live video just to do some social media stuff. And then, and when we caught them, I was like, man, we need to tag these. Cause I remember Crystal in a couple episodes ago was talking about wanting more bull red tags out there. So Merritt gave us 25 last week, 25 bull red tags, and we tagged a couple already this week. And so I had 23 tags, and I was like, man, I think we can do this. Let's knock out this whole bundle of tags today.
Y'all crazy.
Hey, dude, I'm here to tell you, my shoulder, my pecs, almost my entire body is sore from dragging those bruisers in. And I was regretting my decision. But at the point of when we got down to having about 5 or 6, 7 tags left over, I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Can't stop at that point. You're committed.
We committed to it. Went ahead and knocked out the whole bundle of tags Merritt gave me. And I texted her before I got back. I said, I need some more bull red tags. And she met me at the dock with 50 more. So
that's awesome, man.
Yep.
Yeah, that was.
So now we got our next mission ahead of us. But man, it was great to see you and your dad out there bowed up on a few.
It was fun. Yeah, he had a good time. I bet he sore today too. We caught probably 4 or 5 apiece, and it started blowing pretty good, man. And he's like, we had some live shrimp from messing around with trout early that morning. He's like, you want to go try for some sheep head? I was like, I don't think so, man. I think I'm good.
It was getting really bumpy out there when I left.
Yeah, and we made the right choice. It started gassing right after that. So I'm glad we called it whenever we did, for sure. That was a crazy brown chocolate milk Mississippi Sound, Mobile Bay to, crystal emerald colored water yesterday. I don't know if I've ever seen one that good that far inshore.
Man, so in the last few years, I've noticed that when you get that perfectly nice incoming tide with a little bit of east wind, that water will tend to push all the way over to the edge of the bar and just be gin clear emerald green water, and then have that poo brown muddy fresh water coming out of the bay, and they will not mix. It is a hard to find line, and I'm sure you saw that. It's crazy. It's black and white difference between the two. And it's, you know what I find a little interesting is I rarely find fish right on that rip. I always think about you listening to the offshore guys that, they live for those kind of color changes and those rips and stuff. And I've personally never caught many bull reds on those rips. What about you, Bobby? You've been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, and I think what happens is what we were talking about, and I can't remember if we were recording this, but we talked about recording it, is I think what happens is you get, even on the surface, it looks to us like there's this real defined line that functions more like a wedge. You know what I'm saying? To where you're, even though we're seeing that line on the surface, that green water line is coming through as like a wedge. So those fish could be, and I've been out there catching them where I've drifted into, seen exactly what you're talking about, and drifted into the muddy water and really even continue to catch them or start to catch them. And I think that's what it is I think you've got
still pretty clear.
It's not a vertical line. You know what I'm saying? I think it's more of a diagonal line, or maybe even less than a diagonal line, almost like just a layer of brown, because we were talking about, and again, I don't know if we recorded this, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I've been, and we've all done it, where we've been idling through that stuff when the green, real pretty water's nearby, idling through it, and you look back in your wash, and it's this beautiful water boiling up behind, And so,
we were not recording, and Richard was doing the Dixie bar stuff last week, and he said the same exact thing.
Yeah, you'll see that water come up. So I think that's the case, and is what's going on there. And then this too. You guys know this too. Is even though that water discourages us as fishermen, that off-colored water, those bull reds, they'll, even if there is a column of some off-colored water, if there's something to eat in there, they're going to get in that stuff. And, you know what I'm saying? They don't care, man. I mean, we've all caught them and just, and like you have too, I'm sure, save trips when we're getting muddy water situations and the redfish continue to eat, So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but as far as like the rip line goes, it's to your question is I've caught them through, dragging through the green water or vice versa, the brown water, and continue to catch them all the way through. And I think it's just because that there is that whatever layer it is that they're relating to is there,
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there was no doubt yesterday. I mean, as soon as I think high tide was like 11:20 or 11:30 yesterday, and as soon as that doo-doo water started moving, you could tell it was kind of coming, out of the bay and going down towards the east. The birds disappeared and the fish were gone. They'd had enough.
But I wonder if once that tide really starts humping it, coming back out, because we were catching them all on that incoming tide. I've seen it where those fish are kind of really like almost sunning, like we were seeing them.
Yeah. They were up and they were not going down at all yesterday.
And then as soon as that mud starts pouring out and coming across the bar, what I've found is I've had to just switch tactics and just put those baits on the bottom and then just start doing the Dixie bar drift and just run up to the point, drop those baits, and just let that current just pull the boat. You can turn the motor off and just drift. That's what I've seen once that tide switches and starts dumping back out.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's what happens. I think you get that energy coming out of the bay, getting pulled out, even with, what salinity is in that water, pull it out. Still, there's such a volume of water that's got to get out of that pass that it's going to spread back to the east, even though eventually it's going to all turn and go back to the west, but there's all that, when that's coming out, that water's not coming from the incoming water's not coming from the east anymore. So you got the energy is actually coming out, south and even east because of the volume of water that's got to, and it's doubled up because you got all the river water that's coming down with it, so you're really getting a lot of volume of water coming out of there.
Yep. That was going to be my next topic. River levels are high. They're still high, and I think they're going to be high for a little while after these next 3 days.
I looked at it this morning, and it looks like it shows on the Alabama and on the Tom. You get this. It dropped down to where it wasn't out of flood, but it's just about to come out of flood. And it looks like we're going to get a little bubble, and then it's going to drop on out. And I think Berry I looked at it this morning. Berry was at 10, which has been up around 12, and it's at 10, and it's kind of leveled off at 10. So I just don't know how much we're going to get out of the stuff along the coast, which is where a lot of these systems that are coming through right now are staying. Doesn't affect that. This is stuff that's upstate is what affects that. And, as long as just depends on how much rain we get out of these next couple systems north of us here is what's going to affect that.
Right.
But we're heading the right way. I haven't been out there at the mouth of the bay in the last week, but, hearing what you guys are saying, we're not far away from the lower end of the bay starting to clear up. If you got that green of water there at Fort Morgan,
it was gorgeous.
There's a layer of salinity that's
surprised.
coming up in the bay right now, and we're not far away. And that's kind of the number. When you start getting around 7 at the reading at Berry, when you start getting around 7 or 8, you've gotten fishable water up into the lower part of the bay.
Mm-hmm.
You can even fish the shoals and the bridge sometimes when you get reading at Berry at 7. So that's kind of where we're at right now as far as the river level goes.
What you've been seeing, where you've been fishing, Captain Patric?
I've been kind of punting on trying to be a trout fisherman. I've been really just keying in on structure around the edges of the bay, on the west side of the bay, on the east side of the bay, just popping cork in live shrimp and getting some pretty doggone nice numbers of redfish. And we're catching redfish from little rat size all the way up to 25, 26 inch upper slots, and then throwing in the occasional 29 to 31 inch redfish in the mix, and been making some really good charters out of just redfish in here lately. And so we fished the east side of the bay today, and it was nothing but redfish. We didn't see a puppy drum, a sheephead, a speckled trout, or nothing. Whereas on the west side of the bay, the last couple of days, we were catching some trout, not many, but we were catching a few trout, and we were catching some sheephead and the redfish. So, I mean, it's a decent, like a pretty nice mixed bag of fish and some pretty steady action. But the common theme on both sides of the bay is there's a lot of area that you're going to fish. Best thing I can say is that I've been just putting myself in a position where we can just effectively fish an area and just keep moving, keep covering water. And then as soon as you get that bite, especially if you're in shallow water and you got the power poles or talons or some way to stop the boat, stop there. We're catching, I mean, upwards of 15 or 20 fish in one stop. So, but you may have an hour and a half without a single bite. But then when you find that one group of fish, for instance, I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago, we made a stop. We caught a fish, a sheephead. Right just in front of us is a daggone big ugly black drum with his tail sticking out of the water. So I'm like, all right, so a sheephead's here, right, a black drum's here. He's just waving at us. So we posted up and we caught sheephead, redfish, and actually ended up hooking one of those big uglies and somehow popped the hook or something. But anyway, all of this life was in one probably 20-foot, 25-foot zone. And once that bite died off, we continued drifting a little bit further and not another bite. So there's, like I told my customers this morning, I said, look, we're going to do a good bit of fishing. Hopefully we get a decent amount of catching in there. And luckily we did about an hour of fishing early and then nothing but catching the rest of the morning. So,
yeah, it's a good thing.
Some days you're more blessed than others to be able to have a lot more catching than fishing. But that's definitely the thing to do right now. As far as with this water being real muddy like this, I really haven't ventured into the sound much in the last couple of weeks. So Bobby may be able to speak on some of that. Maybe there's some cleaner water over there. But I mean, most of what I've been fishing has been visibility of about 4 to maybe 10 inches of, maybe 10 inches of visibility. So it's not pretty to look at, but redfish are notorious for not giving two craps about what color the water is. When they're ready to eat, they're going to eat.
That's what we were just, like we said, what we just talked about, especially when you put that real stuff on them like that too, and that's classic. What you were just talking about, I'm sitting there nodding my head. I said, man, that's classic springtime fishing. It's a feast or famine deal, man. It's when you're on them, I do the same thing. I'll grab, if they get on the cell phone or start making a sandwich when the bite's on, I'm going, guys, not now. You're going to have plenty of time for that. I can promise you. You better catch them now. I can tell you.
That's right.
And sure, in 20 minutes, you're going to get the old every time. Where'd they go, Cap? Okay. Well, I was trying to explain to you a minute ago, man. Right. You got to catch them when they're biting, because it ain't like and I tell them it ain't going to be like this all day, guys. I'm telling you, you're going to have some downtime. So you got to catch them when they're biting, and you move along and boom, just like you described, classic springtime fishing, man.
Do you think those fish, whenever you found them, Patrick, do you attribute it to anything, shell bottom, or you just think there was some bait in the area or something like that?
In the areas I'm catching these redfish, I'm not seeing much of anything. I might see a mullet jump. I'm not seeing really any kind of like bait fish. So I think these guys are really kind of foraging for whatever's available.
Yep, I agree with you. I think that's exactly what goes on too. Another thing during the spring is they're chewing what's ever in their way, especially those, like he's talking about, those reds, you know.
Yeah. When you're talking about a school that may be 20 or 30 redfish together, and they're all in that, say, 15 to 22 inch range. I mean, those dudes they're dang near jumping in the boat to get the shrimp out of the live well when you get near them, you know? So that, and Bobby is dead on. When you're committed to fishing and finding your fish and you get hooked up, you need to get another line right there where that same one just came out of, and just keep firing away into that spot until they quit biting, because you may not get another opportunity like that the rest of the morning or rest of the day. So when you get that bite, you need to capitalize on it and make hay while the sun's shining, because it does not last forever.
It doesn't, man. You know, that's I've been down in the Sound mainly, and we're mainly trout fishing, still catching reds too, mixed in with them. But it's exact same thing. You know, we're moving along and finding there's some bait down there in the form of glassman, as everything's on these little bay anchovies or glassman. As I haven't seen any shrimp activity to speak of yet. It's going to start happening, but I haven't seen it yet. And it's the same thing, just drifting along. I'm using, you know, the fish are slicking right now really well. So that, well, I say really well, they do it. Sometimes you have to do it the old fashioned way and just start casting until you find them. But they've been slicking really well, and that's been giving them away. We've been hitting these hot schools of trout, and I was telling Butch before we got you on that, you know, the numbers are no problem at all. The numbers have been phenomenal. You know, I ain't setting any state records, and we ain't taking a whole bunch of pictures, but we're hitting a lot of fish in the boat. And, you know, just, you know, it's kind of weird. You go from one day to the next, fishing kind of roughly the same areas, doing the same thing, and just go from one day to the next. And it's amazing. Yesterday we had a great numbers day, but we had some of the best quality fish that we've had. And probably since this spring, as far as the number of quality fish we had, trout I'm talking about, and then we had a really good topwater trip. The guys just made, you know, it's hard. I know this is going to sound crazy because, you know, I like to topwater fish, but, you know, told me we were going to topwater fish and not worry about putting corks on. And I said, man, that's fine with me, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna keep one cork on, because it's the only way we're going to get fish in the boat. Dang, if we didn't catch them really, you know, pretty nice fish on topwater, you know. So and it was just because they made me do it, you know. And but you know how we get, man, we get
his hand.
Well, you know, it's hard to sit here and say they forced me to topwater fish, because it's my favorite way to fish. But, you know, I know what puts the fish in the boat this time of year. I know exactly, you know? And so,
oh yeah,
but it's, you know, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's moving around until you're hitting these pockets of fish and staying on them, and then moving a little bit more and finding some more fish. And sometimes you have to go ahead and crank the big motor up and move to a different area, but it's the same it's the same procedure in that area. So
what's the water quality like up there in the Sound?
It's great. It's fine. You know, that the area that I'm fishing, when you get just west of the Dolphin Island Bridge, all the way to the Mississippi line, and then south out into the Sound, you've got to have some really, really high river stages for that to go bad. It was either last year or the year before, we had a reading at Berry at 17 feet. That's the highest I've ever seen.
I remember.
That was near record levels. And that's the only time in Grand Bay I've ever, in my life, and I've been fishing down there forever, in that area, that I've ever seen muddy water, ever. But when you get, you know, where we've been and below, I have more of the other problem. It's if you don't get wind or cloud cover and that sun gets up, it gets tough because the water gets too clear. Sure. You have to move off into a little bit deeper water because it gets too clear. So I've been having the other problem. And actually what I do, I've been, instead of moving to deeper water, I've been moving back to the east, back towards the bridge and the Portersville area versus down towards the Mississippi line. And when the sun gets up a little bit or the wind quits, because the water's a little bit more stirred up, which typically is the case over there, but it's way high salinity. I've got big, you know, foam wake all the way back. So I got good salinity, and that's the case. That's typically the case. Most of that, when you get, you know, 10 feet or below, most of that runoff goes out of the mouth of the bay. When you start to get to 12 and above, you start to get some runoff down through the Sound.
Backing up a little bit.
Yeah, down through the intercoastal. But even on the north side and the south side of the Sound, it stays clear.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that ends up being a lot of a wind-driven too, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Like as long as you've got as long as you don't have a super, super strong east wind to push it into the sound on what's the incoming tide? Outgoing tide when it starts pulling.
It moves, it moves from the east to the west on the falling water. But even in that case, most of that is you'll get, and we get predominantly an east component this time of year. It's going to be east, northeast, southeast this time of year. And even then, most of that runs down the true center of the sound, like the intercoastal area, versus like on the north, the north side of the sound up into the Grand Bay system, Marsh system. Yeah. And then on the south end, even you can get, south of the intercoastal and down along the west end of Dolphin Island. Even then you'll still have clean water there. So most of that is actually runs down the center of the sound, and it doesn't affect the edges of the sound until it starts getting way up in the teens, which we're knock on wood, we haven't gotten there, and hopefully are not going to get there yet this year.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I hope not, man.
Yeah, I hope it's over.
I know, and I keep thinking, I'm going like, come on, man, we're just a little bit longer, and we're going to be out of this springtime deal. Out of the springtime weather systems.
Yeah. I mean, we did pretty good this year as far as the way it's been the past couple of winters. Positive Pat got us through that. There was a couple of sketchy times there. I mean, I feel like it's been better than it has the past couple of years. We weren't singing the blues quite as bad. I think we just got kind of lucky that we did have more local rain and not so much up in the middle of the state. Don't y'all think?
That's right. Yep. And I was surprised too that we didn't get more from the flooding they had way north of us in the Tennessee. And I don't know how all that works, in that Tennessee area, but they really got flooded up there. And I would have thought that some of that would eventually worked its way down here, but to where, and that's what I was kind of holding my breath on. But again, keeping my eye on the river stages, it doesn't show any kind of big major bubbles through like the weekends, you know what I'm saying? So knock on wood, man, I'm hoping, and as we usually by the time we get into May and June, you're pretty well done with all of that.
Great. Yep.
Yep. Let's hope that. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day, Bobby, is if you look on those river charts, all of the historical highs are typically like that January through April. And you rarely see any of those historicals into May or June or anything like that. So I'm with you. I'm pulling for this drop and get back to some normal levels. Cause I was thinking about the other day is I was talking to a fella at the ballpark, and he was asking me about trout fishing and what did I think about the muddy water and everything. And I was like, typically I think like where trout should be anywhere, just talking about like the Eastern Shore side of things, anywhere from Daphne all the way to Fort Morgan, I feel like there's trout there right now, despite the low salinity. And as soon as the water starts clearing up and getting better for us to be able to catch them, they're there. And they don't magically just appear.
No, they don't. And I agree with you. I think that's not, it's not just to the Eastern Shore. I think it's the same thing on the west side, the exact same thing you're talking about. And I had a conversation with someone the other day about the same thing is because they show up, it's like overnight, boom, you start catching them. Those fish didn't swim up from the Gulf, and you start catching them at Daphne Pilings or on the docks over there or on the shoals by the bridge or something like that. They literally will show up almost overnight. And so they're right around there somewhere, they know what to do. They their salinity levels for them enough to survive, so I think you're exactly right. Matter of fact, I know you are, because it happens all the time. You'll get, whatever that number happens to be, and then you mix in a little proper wind direction and a good incoming tide, and boom, all of a sudden you start catching them, and you're going like, well, they showed up. Well, no, they didn't show up. They've been here forever. You know what I'm saying?
They came from somewhere
They just got
close
to where we can actually catch them. So, and I've said this forever too. And then we talk about it, as we're during the dead of winter, when we get those major runoff levels, January and February, and the Delta gets flooded out, and we all go like, well, and the fish didn't go far. They're somewhere around there. And everybody's, well, they're in they drop off in the ship channel. They probably do. The problem we got is we can't catch them. Nobody's figured out how to, they probably do drop off there. You know what I'm saying? Sure. And it's the same thing in the Mobile River, I think. And this is me guessing because I don't have the experience that Patric does up there, but you guys, and I'm talking about Patric and the guys that are good up there, it's like you get like some heavy runoff and they quit catching them, and then it's almost all of a sudden, boom, they start catching them again.
Yep.
Them fish are right around there. They're right around there somewhere. So it's exactly to what he's saying is they're not going far. Trout just don't behave like that. They're gonna be right around there somewhere, and again, it's not going to be long. You're going to start catching them.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, Captain Bobby. I like catching those big speckled trout off the beach.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. I've done it a couple times. I'm not very good at it. Still learning it. What's going to be the next step to make that good? Are we looking at water temperatures or salinity like you're talking about moving in?
Well, the good thing about over there is the salinity stays high. And the years that we've had these extreme runoff events is the years that the Gulf beaches have been really good. But I think there's a population of, I think throughout our entire system here, there's a populations of fish that kind of live or resident fish that are born there and grow up there and stay in that general area. And I think that Gulf area is one of them. I don't think fish from the Mobile Delta swim down to the Gulf Beach. I had a guy when I was a baby guide. This guy, I used to ask this guy all the time. He was an older guide. He lived on the Gulf Beach. That's where all he did was croaker fish on the Gulf Beach. And he was so good at it. And I used to ask him all the time. I said, where do those fish go? Because they catch them during the summer, but we wouldn't catch them during the winter. And I used to ask him, I said, where do those fish go during the winter? And he's going, they go out in the Gulf. They go out and they live out in the Gulf. And I'm going like, this little guy's crazy. He don't know what he's talking about. And this is the truth. I didn't mean to go off onto this tangent, but I have to finish this story. Talking to these guys one time, they came up to me, and this is how long ago this was. They showed me a Polaroid, and they got a Polaroid of you got young guys laugh at Polaroids. Us old guys are used to seeing Polaroids. Anyway, these guys showed me these Polaroids, and this was back when there was no season on snapper, and you could catch snapper pretty much year round. Mm-hmm. And these guys had been rig fishing in 60 feet of water with ballyhoo, and showed me they had 4 speckled trout that were guessing they were as long as their leg. They were 6 to 7 pound speckled trout. And the guy goes, hey man, look at these speckled trout we caught. I said, where'd you catch them? He said, we caught them at a rig in 60 feet of water in January on ballyhoo. And I went, I said, and this guy had no reason to lie to me because he had a bunch of snapper laid out with him, And I'm going like, maybe that old man wasn't so crazy after all, you know what I'm saying? So the point of the whole story is I think that there's, to your original question, I think that like right now, you probably could go out on the Gulf Beach and catch fish. The issue you're going to run into is what we're just talking about wind direction is you've got to be able to fish them and live. Right. Because you go out there on a 25 knot southeast wind and try and fish that Gulf Beach. It'll be like just that picture like your brother showed us at Dixie. Right. That's what the Gulf Beach is going to look like. So it's the same thing we were talking about with the ship channel a little while ago is just because of there doesn't mean you can go catch them. It doesn't do you any good if you can't catch them, so, you could go on the Gulf Beach probably now. And I remember, Patrick, and you may remember this one a few years ago when they used to do those Alabama, I forgot what they called it, but it was a state inshore championship or whatever they called it, where you had to catch a speck of red and a flounder. Mm-hmm. And the husband and wife team, and I don't remember their names, but the husband and wife, good anglers, went around on the outside of Katrina Cut to catch redfish and caught their slam out there of speckled trout, redfish, and flounder. And it was in January. So, and I can tell you this too, I caught speckled trout on more than one occasion, red fishing at the lighthouse with grubs in January. So, there's fish that are staying in some of those areas. You
just got to be able to catch them. You got to be
able to fish them. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So, I think that, like, again, getting back to your original question about the Gulf Beach, I think you could probably go, if you had the right conditions, go there and catch some fish right now. I think it won't be long where, if the river stages keep dropping, that some of the areas in the sound are going to be good, like more up into the sound, like the Shoals area. And when you told me that you had pretty water over there on the inside of Fort Morgan, it's probably beautiful. Not going to be, it's not going to be far away. It was beautiful
compared to Mississippi or the Mobile on the way out the bay. It was, so, you could see your trolling motor as far down as it could go.
You could probably catch fish in there. You know what I'm saying right now. So, because they're just not going far. Trout just don't move like that. They don't, make these big migrations the way, for example, big bull reds do,
Yes, Patrick Skipper sent me a picture from the escape a minute ago. I guess they went out and did some fishing today. It was about 12-foot seas on Dixie bar. It looked like North Point of Wahoo out there, dude. It was gnarly. He said it was an interesting day today. I said, yeah, I see that.
Interesting.
That's the thing about that Dixie bar too, is, you know, that when it's the best, which is now to me until usually about June, it starts to slow down, you know, but like I catch them, you know, in the fall through now is as good as, but you got this, we were just talking about, you start getting that east and southeast wind, especially 2 or 3 days of it, man, that Dixie bar it can
sloppy.
Get treacherous out there, man. I mean, cause you got all those big rollers coming in from that deep water, and then boom, it hits that shallow water, and you get those big swells coming in. I've had, you guys have too, man, where it's out there, you get, you know, I get nervous out there sometimes.
Pucker factor gets a
little,
little.
You know, you're sitting, I mean, I've had the situation where we'll have 2 fish on and have our back turned, and then all of a sudden you hear, you turn around and it looks like a Wi-Fi low breaking, you know, breaking right next to your boat, you know, it's like, you know, so you still, you know, so getting back to that, you still got to be able to get out there to catch them and live while you're doing it. You
That's
know?
right. All about condition.
All of the above is required to have a good day of
That's
fishing.
right.
No doubt.
Yeah. We got to catch fish and live.
Yeah.
All right, man. What else did we miss? I think that about covers it. That's a pretty good inshore segment. Anything y'all want to add?
Man, I'll tell you, a whole bunch of stuff. You know, you get me going. We're not going to be here for another half an hour.
When's wade fishing?
Yeah.
I want to hit Bobby with the question, because I'm like, I fish a good bit of Dolphin Island, but not a lot, and I don't really do much wade fishing. So when are you jumping out of the boat and testing that bobbo meter?
Well, I'll tell you what, you could do it right. You know, there's some places where I've caught fish even earlier than this, and that's when you better have the waders. You know, it's right now it's at that point to where, you know, I mean, I don't know about you. I'm still leaving in the morning with a sweatshirt and some long pants on, and then eventually finishing up with a pair of shorts and a fishing shirt on, you know. But when it's that range right there, I'm still probably going to carry waders. But, you know, it's going to be any time now. The biggest trout I've ever caught in my life was on my wife's birthday, which is April 25th. We were wading and on the west end and that's about as early, even though I love that West End beach. I do that. That's my favorite fishing in the world. You know, I always push it early, but the telltale sign, at least down there, which is my favorite area to wade, is when you start seeing those droves of mullet down there. Usually it's usually on into May before that gets like that. So, but that doesn't mean that there's not other areas you can't do it. You know, some of those areas in the sound with the right wind, some good shell bottom, the shoals when it clears up, you know, that's always an early place to get out and wade. You know, the Heron Bay area, you know, around Portersville area. But so it's going to be any time. I'm always pushing it, you know. Matter of fact, my trip tomorrow was coming from out of town and has canceled because of I looked at my waders when I walked out of to come down here to Butch's house, and I said, you know, I think I'm gonna throw those in my truck just in case tomorrow. So I may go do it tomorrow, but it's any time now. It's any time. But again, I would highly recommend, you know, unless you're pretty tough. I don't like to wear waders unless I absolutely have to. That's my last resort, or not last resort, but I'll go and tough it out, you know, and just hold my breath until the Captain Bobbo meter touches the water, you know. But you know, but usually once you get in and start, you kind of get used to it. The problem with waders, they're great when you're fishing. The problem is you got to walk back with them, you know. And so and I'm always the one that has to walk back, you know. So I don't like to wear them unless I absolutely have to. They're a pain in the butt, you know, when you have to walk back to the boat, you know. And the way I wade, and Butch, you've been with me, I know at least once, but I'll go a long ways. You're gonna keep moving until I find something. I get carried away. I'm going, God, man, that boat looks small back there. Wait a minute, I just saw a mullet jump. Let me go a little further.
End up 5 miles away.
And then I'm going oh man, I got to walk all the way back to that boat. That's when I'm praying. That's when I'm praying. I see somebody I know coming down in a boat, and I'm flagging them down, going like, hey,
I need a ride. I need an Uber.
I need an Uber. Jay O'Brien picked
Bobby, I want to go one more question into this wading conversation. What about, all right, you're jumping out of the boat, waders or not, whatever. What are a couple of, I mean, what are you gonna tie on? You just gonna go slick lure, top water, What are you going to do there?
Always going to have a top water on first thing, always, without a doubt. It's like Butch and I were talking about, I think, again, I can't remember if we recorded this part too, but, and you and I think you and I were even talking about this, is I'm always going to have a top water on first thing because I think you can, even if the fish aren't on top water, you can get them to give themselves away, and I love top water fishing. So I'm going to do that first thing. So I'm always, everybody's going to have a top water on when we get started. Then in my wade box, it used to be mirror lures, but now my wade box is nothing but slicks. You can get everything done with slicks wade fishing. And the only other thing I might throw in there is some soft, like a regular jig, like a single hook jig. If you get into fish real thick and I don't want to, now that's the good thing about the slick lure now is you only have one hook to take out of. But back in the day when I was throwing mirror lures, you're having, if you're throwing a Catch 2000 or even a 52 series mirror lure, you're talking about 2 or 3 treble hooks, and every trout was an adventure, especially if you
hook from his tail spot
and
all the way to his face.
especially if you had a big one and you had to net him, because now you got all the hooks in the net too. Yeah. And even using rubber line nets, they're tough to get the hooks out. So everybody's going to have top water on when we first get started, and make a quick, just depending on what happens, make a pretty quick adjustment just based on what the fish are doing.
I like it. That's good stuff. We went, I remember we went, I don't remember whenever me, you, and Joe and Jay went, but I remember the water being so clear that, we were up neck deep a couple times, and you could see your feet, no problem.
Yep. And that's the way it gets a lot of times on that. And that's the reason those days, I really
like. Might have been a little later than this.
Yeah.
Might have been like May or June.
Yeah.
If you're neck deep.
Right.
Yeah. It's, I'm sure it was on into the summer, but that's the thing about it too, is I like that. That's another reason getting in the water is a lot more effective when you're dealing, wading on hard sand or shells and clear water. I just don't have the success in some of those areas that I like to wade out of the boat that I do wade. And just because of that very reason, you're talking about super clear water and hard bottom and things like that. And not that you can't catch the schooling fish out of the boat, in the boat, but when you want to catch the sure enough good ones that get on the edges of those bars and right on the beach, you just got to get out of the boat and wade fish for them.
Yeah.
They're just so spooky down there, and they just won't bite nearly as well out of that boat.
Yep. What else, Patrick?
I don't know.
Good segment.
I think I gave up about all I've been doing.
Yeah. Gave up all your secrets.
Yeah. Which sounds like a pretty heck of a good lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that's music to, when you get grown men that go, that's the best fishing trip of my life. That's music to your ears, dude. That's right. A big compliment right there.
Oh,
man.
Yeah. That's right.
Yep.
Well, Captain Patrick, we appreciate you joining us, man. And I know your books must be heating up as well as the fishing. If folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get up with you?
Fastest, easiest way to check out my book is uglyfishing.com. Click the book now, and you'll be able to see my calendar in live. That is fully live. So if somebody's sitting there looking at the same date you are and they click on it before you do, then it will disappear. So
missed out.
It is. Yep. They will miss out. I think I've got around 8 or 10 days left in June, a few left in July, and already booking all the way into December. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome to hear.
I appreciate all our listeners. Man, I have it's more and more common that my guests step on the boat saying, repeating something I said on the podcast last week or the week before. So
heck yeah.
I really appreciate all of y'all as far as listeners that support me and Bobby and Richard and and supporting the podcast by listening.
That's right. Us too, man. We love it. It's always fun. Like I say, there's been a couple times I've been at the launch and ramp fishing with you guys, and somebody will hear my voice or something and kind of perk up. And he's like, "Hey, welcome to Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report." I'm like, "Yes, sir. That's right." But nah, it is cool,
That's
man.
awesome.
It's cool how much of a tribe mentality we have here with our listeners, man. They really show support, and that's what makes us successful.
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. We appreciate the report, and we'll talk to you soon, Captain Patrick.
All right. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right, folks. That's an awesome report from Captain Bobby and Captain Patrick. Let's take a quick break and hear from this week's sponsors. The Alabama Marine Resources Division reminds all recreational anglers who harvest gray triggerfish, greater amberjack, or red snapper that their catch must be reported through Snapper Check. This includes vessels, kayaks, and shore anglers who possess any of these reef fish. Reporting is mandatory and must be done prior to landing fish in Alabama, regardless of where the fish were caught. Anglers can report to Snapper Check online at OutdoorAlabama.com or through the official Outdoor AL app. For more information about Snapper Check or any of the 2021 fishing seasons, please visit OutdoorAlabama.com. And also brought to you by Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort. Give the professionals a call who have been trusted on the Gulf Coast for over 25 years at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. All right, Captain Bobby, let's head on down, and last but not least, let's head on down to see what Captain Dusty Hayes is up to. What you say, Cap?
Oh, not much. Just practicing my surfing skills today instead of fishing because it is rough for sure.
Yeah, did you get blown off the beach this morning? I saw a Snapchat from you earlier, something about headed to the beach, and it was about 20 minutes later, and you were headed the other way, Hoss.
Yeah, it was forecasted to be a nice slick morning, and or not. Well, I wouldn't say slick, but 2 foot, and a north wind, and that's what we call a prime surf after a little front coming through like that. After a day after some rough weather. All that food and stuff gets stirred up out there, and it's usually pretty exciting to fish even in the rain. Even I love fishing in the rain this time of year. No, it turned out to be a wash. There were some guys that fished though. My buddy Bun, he fished down Mobile Street. He caught some. He said he caught a couple pompano and I think a black drum and some catfish, of course. And then Jeff and Ramona, they were in town. They just rolled into town yesterday. And they fished the state park today, and I know they ended up catching quite a few pompano, even though it was rough. So if you find an area where that sandbar cuts a little closer, those waves break far enough out where they don't have time to rebuild and break right there at your head. And I mean, it is fishable if you find the right spot. I kind of called it quits just because, with the popularity of surf fishing nowadays, if you really got to be where you want to be before the sun comes up. And by the time I got to where I thought I wanted to be and realized how rough it was kind of too late to make a move. You can maybe get lucky and people will stay home, but it's been a lot of people fishing the beach over here and a lot of people catching fish. So, you definitely got to kind of pick and choose your times and go early in the morning and even, afternoon bite's a great time to go. It's something that's really not messed with as much by a lot of people, but I think the afternoon is very overlooked. Even on bad tides, we've had a neap tide earlier this week in the outgoing part in the afternoon, and there's still guys catching a lot of pompano in that. And that is pretty much, if there's 2 things you don't want for pompano surf fishing, it's a neap tide and an outgoing tide. And people are catching them on both. That's a good sign that the fish are there for sure. So, but it's been good. A lot of good numbers of fish still. There's still a mix of plenty of redfish and black drum, and people catching Spanish and bluefish. But the whiting bite has been really, really good. I mean, everywhere from Johnson's Beach and Pensacola Beach through, Fort Morgan, and guys catching not just, I wouldn't say crazy numbers of like, 50 or 60, but a lot of guys catching a dozen or more, and a lot of really big fish, 14 to 15, 16-inch fish, all the way up to 18, 19-inch fish very regularly. And they're fat, full of eggs. And after this little full moon we had, a lot of the pompano are still here, and a lot of them are smaller. And I noticed, a lot of people kind of got discouraged after that first week of the pomp stomp. We had a lot of fish weighed in and a lot of big fish weighed in. And, we were right in that full moon that first weekend. So there's a lot of 3+ and 4+ pound fish, and a lot of people bringing in fish now that are, 2.5 to 3.5 and, pushing 4. And, you got to remember those fish, that first weekend were fat and, they were full of eggs, and a lot of these fish are a little thinner right now, but we do have another full moon phase coming up at the end of the month. Those fish will pick up some more weight before the tournament is over. So if you're fishing the pomp stomp and you're kind of stuck in that 2 to 3 pound range, don't get discouraged, just keep at it. You still got a solid chance of catching that big fish. It's anybody's game really, especially with there's still 3.5 weeks or so or more in the tournament. So but it's definitely been on fire over here, weather permitting. If you can find a decent day, which most days have been fishable for the most part, whether it's been a cold front or rain or whatever, everybody's catching fish. So it's been awesome. It's a good time of year over here for sure.
Dusty, have y'all caught any more permit this spring?
No, I actually haven't seen a lot this spring. It seems, in my experience, we seem to catch a lot more in the summer, late summer especially, and definitely in the fall. I catch 90% of the ones I think I've caught as far, the best of my knowledge, have all been, I want to say, like August to Christmas. Like it seems that fall is when we catch a lot of them. But what I have seen is like April, May, we do see bonefish get caught. I wouldn't say regularly, but
I definitely saw some of that last year. It's crazy.
Yep. I think it was last year, the year before, me and Matt and Caleb and Brett with Fishbites, we were fishing on the beach when we had that little weekend tournament. I want to say it was the year before last. And we caught one, and that was in May. And then Matt's caught a few others. I think I've been twice with Matt when he's caught a bonefish. And then I want to say both in May. And then my buddy Brandon, he actually caught a 15-incher fishing somewhere down Fort Morgan. I don't know if it was Mobile Street or further. See, that was Sunday morning. He caught a 15-incher, which is a decent little bonefish. So,
yeah, for sure. You would think they would. I guess they follow the warmer waters up.
Well, in the Gulf Stream's not far offshore. Well, I'll say not far. It's quite a ways offshore, I guess, at times. But anything's possible. You look at,
for sure,
like Josh, he caught that yellowtail offshore a few years ago. That was like 10 pounds, less than 10 miles out. And, like most people think big yellowtail, you think the Keys automatically. Same thing with permit, same thing with bonefish. So,
yep.
Our fishery can support these, different fish that aren't necessarily, you can't say non-native because it's the Gulf, but non-native to our, region.
Yeah.
But if the water's warm and the bait's there, the structure's there, I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be there. So obviously things are changing in our area, and after a while, I think you'll see a bunch of different fish starting to be caught in our area, like especially snook. Like there's been snook pop up here and there. I think back in the fall or winter, somebody caught a decent snook in Pensacola somewhere.
Yep.
That's the next thing I was going to ask you about. But I got a buddy of mine that's on the Skeeter team. That's a guide, or you may know Daryl Combs. He texted me a picture. It's probably been about 2 years ago. He caught a snook in Wolf Bay. And he texted me the picture of it. And he said, "Look what I caught." And I said, "Dude, you got this." He goes, "Do you know what the size limit is?" I said, "There ain't no size limit on it." I said, "You got the state record."
That's right.
Man. He let it go because he didn't know what the size limit. But what I was getting at, what I was going with when you were talking about that, I was wondering, you're talking about these fish that are really more, known to be like in the southern climates of the Gulf, southern is the Gulf, South Texas, South Florida, how much you'd heard about snook. And it's like you read my mind, because as soon as I was thinking it came right out of your mouth about snook. So it's some snook have been caught up our way over the last few.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw one in Mobile Bay last year.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Well, not me. I saw a picture of somebody caught one.
Yep, I think I heard that, and I'll check with Chris, because me and him were talking about it, and I want to say, I mean, it was several months ago. It was somewhere in Pensacola. I don't know if it was Pensacola Bay, Pensacola Pass, but it was a decent fish. It wasn't a small one. I mean, it was a decent fish for sure. I mean, those things happen, and I, just to kind of clarify too, I always try to push it to everybody. If it's something that, you're not sure what it is, or you're not sure regulation, let it go. Same thing with like those little bonefish and permit on the beach. Like, even though the permit, they don't have regulations in Orange Beach and they're a common catch, just let the things go. I mean, that's the only way we can ever establish a population, is to let things go. Like if somebody catches a snook, you got to think that might be the only one for 100 miles. Maybe there's a couple more, but if you kill it, you just killed half that population.
Yeah, so, that's right.
Literally.
Yeah.
Or maybe all of it.
Yeah.
So,
and odds are, all fish are schooling to some extent. I guarantee you, they're not the only one right there. There were some other ones around.
Some more.
May not be a bunch of them, but that snook or that permit didn't swim up here by himself.
He wasn't the Lone Ranger.
I agree. And I believe that, looking at the size of a lot of these bonefish and permit that we catch in the surf, I think that it's just like a lot of things, that they're whatever spawn happens, that their eggs and stuff and hatchlings end up in the northern Gulf, and if the water's warm enough, they'll stay, because especially like November, December, you see so many permit that are just, like hand size. We see the pompano like late summer and midsummer, that size from the spring spawn, and they're all 3, 4, 5, 6 inches, and you see them all over the place. Like you go in the summertime and there'd be thousands of pompano chasing your lure back, and they're like a school of bait because they're just aggressive little fish. And, you know, as you get late fall and it starts getting cool, you notice that same thing with a permit. You got a lot of these, like, I mean, size of your palm size permit. And so that means that they're, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months old. So, you know, those fish are ending up here somehow. And the same thing with the bonefish. Majority of the bonefish have been, obviously there's been a couple of decent ones caught, but the majority of them seem to be smaller, you know, so a lot of them, I would say 7, 8 inches. So I think that a lot of that, the baby fish, the, you know, 2, 3, 4 month old fish end up here, or maybe they hatch here in our bay system and grow up and work their way out.
We were just having this same conversation about speckled trout in our area, which obviously is a native fish here. But and I think you're exactly right. I think what happens is if they're spawned here, they get acclimated to the environment here, and as opposed to being in, you know, water temperatures that are 80 and 90 degrees all year long. And I think that's probably, I think you're exactly right. I don't know anything at all about permit.
Me either, but just spawning, adapting, and acclimating. It makes sense
hearing what he's saying, because I know for a fact that I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty dang sure that at least with trout, which is something I know about, is I think that what happens is they're born in an area, they grow up in an area, and they pretty much stay in the area, and it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Exactly what he's saying. I think it just goes exactly what we were just talking about with trout a little while ago.
Yep, it does. Agreed.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, and you look at stuff like, you know, you go down to way South Florida, they get these cold snaps where it gets, you know, a whopping 50 degrees and there's speckled trout dying everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you come here in January and we're trout fishing in 30-degree weather, and that water temp can be down in the low 50s or lower. So, I mean, you know, our fish are definitely a lot more acclimated to that. Same thing with, you know, like juvenile tarpon and stuff like that in our areas that, you know, they're not supposed to live below a certain point, but, you know, there's fish that survive it, you know, and
they do.
So I think, and so I think it's just a matter of where they're born, how they accustomed to it, and it's definitely genetic, and it's passed on, and they learn to, you know, live with it, and, you know, kind of grow up with it, and adapt and overcome for sure. It's a cool fishery we have here.
It is, and like you're saying, I think with things showing up that way, I mean, I think we can sustain it here. It doesn't get too cold. It'll be interesting to see as far as the bonefish and the permit, and who knows what else will show up.
Yeah, who knows, man.
I got out came and saw you last week over at Sam's. I got out and did a little surf fishing myself. Man, one of the biggest things that I was running into is, and I know I don't have great surf equipment, I don't even have great trout equipment, but I brought my my trout poles, and it was about 2 or 3 foot. Man, what's your ideal rod size for casting and getting up over those wave tops? I was having a really hard time casting as far as I thought I needed to, and then my line, would dip down in those wave tops, and the grass would get on the line, and yada yada yada. So just kind of walk me through your setup, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so a few critical things. Definitely a longer rod, and you don't have to have a bigger rod to have a longer rod. And I know that sounds kind of gross, but that being said, we sell rods at the store, and there's plenty of different rods that you can get, like we refer to as steelhead rods that they use up north for steelhead trout.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about it before, but these rods are going to be anywhere from 8 to 10 feet, but they're still light action rods. A lot of them are only rated up to an ounce, some of them maybe up to 2, but most of them are like 1, or I'd say half ounce to like 3/4 ounce, like very small area, but we can throw 1 to 1.5 ounce sinkers on them, no problem. But you have a 8.5, 9 foot rod that gives you that little extra length to get that line over that breaker. A big thing is having a long enough surf spike. I make all my sand spikes myself just because it's hard to find a pre-made one that's under $40-$50 that's long enough. So like I'll use Schedule 40. I'll cut my own about 45 inches, and then with that long butt section on your rod, you can put it at an angle in that rod holder, and you can really get that line over that wave. Another thing that helps too, I prefer braided line because it's going to be thinner. And so if that wind's blowing southwest, southeast, or just hard east, hard west, it's going to keep you from getting as much of a bow in your line, and you'll be able to keep that line a little more taut. As far as just your bigger stuff goes, like your bigger surf rods, a lot of guys will start at 8 to 9 feet and then work your way up to 10, 11, 12. Anything past, in my opinion, 11 is really not necessary. There are times where you can use a 12-footer and get that extra distance, but I'm not going to say it's something that you got to have. Like I said, there's times where, like today, you'd want the 12-footer that can throw a 5 or a 6 ounce to get out there, and you might be the only guy fishing. You're definitely going to be the only guy catching fish. But
Right.
Our local
Few and far
surf here,
between.
our local surf here, like I tell to people all the time, because people are like, oh man, I got to have Sputnik sinkers and all that stuff. And those things cost $4 or $5 a pop. If a 3-ounce pyramid ain't holding, I'm ready to go to the house, because that means it's blowing,
Right.
it's blowing 15 plus at that point, and I just don't want to fight it. I'm not that mad at them. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there's times where a Sputnik sinker will hold in that current really well, and it may just be the ideal thing. But with your average surf rod, 9 to 10 to 11 feet, most of them are going to be rated like 1 to 4, 2 to 5, stuff like that. That'll allow you to throw a 2 or 3 ounce with ease and get that extra distance and get that height above those waves. And that longer rod definitely helps your casting and get that cast further. But proper casting technique, to me, outdoes the rod. You can give somebody that really knows how to cast a crappy rod and reel, and they'll outcast somebody with a $400 to $700 setup that doesn't know what they're doing all day long. Now obviously having nice stuff helps, but knowing how to cast properly makes a huge difference. You see a lot of guys that do the old sideways, throwing a Zebco with a bobber and a worm cast, and it'll get a bait out there, but there's no accuracy, and you're definitely not getting the distance you can get. Proper surf casting, and there's different ways. You go up and down the East Coast, and then to Texas, there's different ways people cast. Some guys use conventional, some guys use spinning, but having a baseline proper casting technique and learning how to load that rod and when to release that sinker to get the furthest cast goes a long ways. And it's something anybody can learn. I've taught 7 and 8 year olds with 11-foot rods, and they're slinging it as far as I can. So it's just something you got to get somebody to show you the proper way, or get on YouTube, whatever it may be, to really get that technique down. And that'll get you that further cast. It don't matter if you're using a trout rod or if you're using a 12-foot rod, your casting distance is going to improve just by learning to cast properly.
Dusty, pardon my ignorance here, but man, what is a Sputnik sinker?
Sputnik sinker is, they got other names for them too. But basically it's almost like a teardrop, like a bass caster lead, but it's got these 4 arms, metal arms that come out of it. And those arms dig down in the sand and hold you in place.
I didn't know that's what they were called. Okay,
yep.
Yeah, okay.
And then when you go to retrieve them, those sinkers, they'll pop down and allow you to reel it in with ease instead of dragging those wires all the way back.
Right.
They do good. It's good to hold you in a current, but sometimes, if there's too much current, they'll bury up, and it'll bury your baits with it. And if your bait's couple inches underneath the sand, and you're definitely not catching fish. So.
Right. Yeah. Butch pulled up some pictures of them as you were telling me. And as soon as you started explaining, yeah, cool. I never knew that's what they were called, man. Yep. Thanks. Just learned something else from the podcast, man.
I learned a ton about surf fishing, and I realized how much I didn't know last weekend.
And man, I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm going like, why didn't I bring my notepad right here, man?
Whenever I went to try last week, I caught some nice whiting. I think our first evening out, we caught probably 10 or 12 nice whiting, which I thought was a success, but no pompano. Dusty, I stopped by Sam's, and I got some sketchy guy there named Dusty makes some rigs and puts them in a little Ziploc bag, and he sells them. Do you like the 2 hooks or the 1 hook, or do you feel like one is more successful for pompano or one is more successful for whiting, or when do you go 1 or 2 hooks?
That is deep. I personally like the ones, and as far as a pre-made rig you can buy somewhere that's hand tied, I don't know of anybody else that makes a 1 drop. I hate saying that now because I'm so busy, I don't have the time to tie anymore, and I don't think I got many left, but I like my 1 drops for certain reasons, and there's also plenty of reasons to use a 2. I'll just try to keep it brief, but my biggest thing on a 1 drop is, like on a rougher day like today, that leader is going to be a lot shorter overall, and I always get a further cast with that shorter, overall rig, and I have less drag because I don't have a second hook and a second float and a second bait flying in the air and killing that cast. Now, if it's, moderate surf, light wind, then you can throw a 2-drop rig just as far. So there's a, pro and con situation there. Another thing with the 2-drop, though, where it has its benefits, if you're in a situation where you're not really keyed in, like, hey, I don't know if ghost shrimp are working, or if pink fish bites is working, or if sand fleas are working, or if sand flea fish bites is working, you have, say you fish 4 rods, well, you have the option to fish 4 baits there. You can do 2 different color fish bites, or 3 different color fish bites, or a piece of shrimp and a sand flea,
which is what I was doing.
You can alternate that. Yep. And you can change it however you want. And sometimes it don't matter what it is. They'll hit everything. And I tell people this all the time because they always ask, oh, what's the best color rig? And then I'll be like, man, it don't matter. You just got to buy a couple and play with it. And then they're like, well, come on, tell me the best color. I'm like, man, if there's the best color, I would only carry one.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
And I wouldn't carry all 15 of them.
Right.
And, everybody has their personal preference. And a lot of that changes watercolor. It changes, whether you're further west down Fort Morgan, that water can be very dingy down there. And then if you're fishing in Johnson's Beach or like East Orange Beach, that water can look like the Bahamas down there. So, that's where different colors for different water clarities help. Back to the one drop. Like I said, I like the one drop because I feel like I get a further cast. If I am using natural baits like sand flea or a ghost shrimp, I'm not slinging as much bait off. And it don't matter who you are, how good you are, you're going to sling a bait off. So I don't feel like I'm wasting as much bait. And also too, if I'm catching fish consistently and I'm really kind of keyed in on a float color or a bead color or an exact bait that they're really eating, then I like that simply for the fact that I know I'm not wasting as much bait. And two, as fun as it sounds, if you hook 2 stud pompano, the chances of landing both of them can slim more and more and more the closer you get to that shoreline. And it's not an uncommon thing to hook a red and a pompano at the same time, or a whiting and a pompano. I've caught flounder and pompano. I've caught baby cobia and pompano on the same time. And a lot of times it works out where you catch that double. But, man, I've also lost a lot of big pompano right there at the shoreline. I got 2 of them on, and they're 2, 3, 4 pound fish, and they're fighting each other, and they decide to go the other way, and one of them's going to pop off. Now, that being said, you still land a fish, but you got to fish with a hook in its face and possibly dragging around a lead. It's not a super common thing, but it's just one of those things that prevents 2 fish getting on. As it gets warmer too, you notice like more ladyfish, more bluefish, more juvenile jacks and stuff like that. If you got ladyfish thick in the surf and you're fishing shrimp, man, not only are you going through a ton of bait, but you're hooking 2 ladyfish every time, and you're just going to be tearing through leaders left and right. So
yeah, that makes sense.
There's pros and cons to both. I wouldn't say there's a better. It's really personal preference. Up close whiting fishing, though, I'm going to take a 1 drop over a 2 drop any day, no doubt. But as far as your longer casting for pompano, it's kind of a boils down to personal preference. There's definitely pros and cons to both.
All right, man, that's a perfect segue into our Hey Cap segment. And Phil brings us a great question this week. We have all reviewed Phil's last name, and we're going to take guesses at how to pronounce it. What do you think, Captain Bobby?
I was going to say Salingue.
What do you think, Dusty?
I'm going to say Salingue.
Salingue, I like that. I think it's going to be Phil Salingue. Phil, whoever gets the closest to your last name.
Wait, you just said it the way I said it. You can't. Yeah. Phil.
What'd you say, Dusty?
Oh, hell, I don't remember now.
Phil S.
I thought Butch was going to cop out and go Phil S.
That's right. Well, now I am. All right. Phil S. brings us a great question. He submitted it over on our Best Fishing Report Facebook page. Phil asks, what is the best method for targeting flounder from the beach, and what time of day to do so? Figured you'd be a good one for this one, Dusty. What you think?
Yeah, so as far as time of day, I'm definitely going to say early morning. And a lot of that's going to depend on where you're at. Now, early morning, the first reason I say that is because our Alabama beaches and a lot of, beaches along the Gulf Coast can be heavily populated with swimmers and, beach goers and all that stuff. So early in the morning, those fish have come in, overnight, and they're, hunting in the surf, and by hunting, they're ambush predators, but, they're hanging out in the surf. As that sun gets higher, they'll ease their way out to deeper water to prevent getting, chased by predators, birds, whatever it is. And also people stomp around in the surf. Now, certain areas of beach, say you find a little area of beach that really doesn't have a lot of pressure from, people walking and beachgoers, then, they may be out there later on in the day. That being said, it seems like starting here, here through, I would say, the next month or so, all the way till November, December, you'll get flounder in the surf for sure. And I really like to cover ground when targeting them. A lot of guys will do just kind of set up and fish them. And if you're fishing around structure, like there's some little structures on the beach down Fort Morgan, there's some in Perdido Key. You got West Pass and Perdido Pass and Orange Beach and Gulf Shores. And if you're fishing around structure, kind of fishing more stationary with a live bait like a finger mullet or a bull minnow, croaker, stuff like that is very productive if you're in a heavily area with a lot of fish presence, put it that way. I think the best way to do it, though, is definitely walking the beach, throwing lures, targeting them. Flounder are ambush predator. They're pretty much stationary, waiting on something to come by them, and they're going to eat it, especially if the opportunity presents itself where it's like the perfect scenario where they're not going to turn it down. That's why, I'm convinced, like, if you cross your lure, or if your lure cross paths with a flounder, they're going to eat it. It almost don't matter what it is, simply because if it's right in front of their face, they're not going to turn it down. To me, one of the best methods is what we call fan casting. So you're going to cast, to pretty much as far left as you can to all the way to your far right, and you can have, left to right, right to left, whatever works for you. And look for small holes where that sandbar comes in close along the beach and cover those areas. Now, there's also places where, along the beach where, that sandbar may be at 100 yards, and those fish will be scattered out in that deep water, especially in the fall when there's a heavier presence of flounder in the surf. I say that as if, there's also be plenty in the summer too sometimes. But definitely lures are going to be the go-to, in my opinion. Now, there's quite a few different rigs you can try. I think actually last time I talked about the John Skinner rig, Bobby was on here with us.
Yep, I remember.
Yep, and that was when I was in Atlanta last year. But and that's just a basic bucktail jig on the bottom, and that can vary from like a small pompano jig from a 1/2 to 3/4 to 1 ounce pompano jig up to like the little Berkeley Fusion or Spro bucktail jigs, 1/2 to 1 ounce. And usually people are going to tip that with a cut bait of sorts, or like a piece of Fishbites, piece of squid, anything like that is going to work good, and even gulp. And then usually above that, 6 to 8 inches to even to a foot, people have a small all-purpose hook or a small O'Shaughnessy hook with a gulp on there, or whatever scented plastic you like. And that's a proven rig, especially if you're fishing a little deeper, more turbulent water, something I like. One of to me, the all-time favorites, especially in our area, is, the Chris Vecce special, the little paddle tails, pre-rig paddle tails, or Tsunami. There's Berkeley power baits. There's quite a few. I know he's partial to the Tsunamis, but all the Tsunami stuff's kind of tough to get right now because of COVID. There's plenty of alternatives, but basically just a pre-rig paddle tail swim bait that already have the weighted hook and inside of them. They're flat bottom, so they swim real well along the surf line. And something else that I'm actually excited about this year, Gulp came out with a couple new colors in their swimming mullet, in like pearl with chartreuse tail, which is a huge flounder color, especially in the fall. And they also came out with a paddle tail now, which I'm not really a Gulp fan, but if I'm flounder fishing, I don't mind buying a pack of Gulp. And those little paddle tails, man, they're sweet, and they make some really cool colors, especially the silver mullet color. It's kind of holographic. And then another thing that we just got into the shop yesterday that we've been kind of anticipating is the Hoagie Slowtail 3/4 and 1 ounce baits. And, we sell a lot of Hoagies. We use them for everything from trout fishing to flounder fishing off the beach, all the way up to tarpon fishing.
Yeah.
But, man, they now make the Slowtail, which is the twin double tail, all the way down to like a 3.5 inch, 3/4 ounce bait. And it is going to be an absolute surf flounder killer this year. We doubled up on them just because, it's going to be, if the flounder show up in the surf, this is going to be the lure to throw for sure. And we definitely got the solid colors. We got pearl and we got chartreuse and some other natural colors. But, just walking, fan casting, as far as I said, time of day, I think early morning's good. If you're in an area that doesn't get as much foot pressure, those fish will move back in right before dark. And if you're in, certain times of the year, once it starts getting cooler and, nobody's really been on the beach in a day or two, or if, it's been rough weather and there hasn't been a lot of people swimming and stuff, then yeah, you may find them, pinned up in there all day long. Like I said, for the most part, I like to fish early. It seems like they stay in there overnight, and then they'll work their way out as that sun gets higher.
That makes sense, man. That's a great Hey Cap question. Phil, Salingue. Phil Saling. I think I'm going to go with Saling. Anyways, Phil's going to get a prize back from the Slick Lure. Phil, make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your Slick Lures. You guys make sure you're following the Best Fishing Report page over on Facebook and join that private group, Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. Captain Dusty, great report. Great Hey Cap question. If folks want to get up with you and book a trip or come pick your brain about tackle or any of the assortments of above, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you need to call or text me, it's my number is 678-897-0167. That's really the best way to get in touch with me. And then if you need any help with tackle or anything like that, you can find me at Sam's Stop and Shop in Orange Beach, and we can help you out with anything surf related or offshore, inshore, all that stuff. But like I said, if you're fishing the Pomp Stomp too, or bring it back up.
I am.
Don't
actually bought a ticket.
Yep. There's still a lot of time. It's anybody's game, but those big numbers were quick for sure. But I mean, there's still a lot of good fish being caught. There's still a lot of fish that's going to be caught. So everybody keep at it. And it's cool to see how many people have entered this year. We got a huge number. We not only broke the record, but we, more than tripled it really. And so it's awesome to see how many people are participating in it for sure.
It's great to hear, man. Great to see people getting out and expanding their horizons of fishing, or maybe just getting into fishing in general. We love that.
Absolutely.
All right, Dusty, we appreciate the report, buddy. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That segment was brought to us by SunSouth. When it's time to tackle projects on your property, come see us at SunSouth. We offer John Deere equipment ready to tackle any project that comes your way. From moving and mulching to planting and picking, our team at SunSouth will help you find the equipment to meet your needs. And right now at SunSouth, get 0% financing on select John Deere equipment. Plus, receive additional bonus cash on qualifying trade-in equipment. Come see us at SunSouth. Equipment for those that do. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Expires April 30th, 2021. And also brought to you by Test Calibration. If your diesel has low power or is consuming excessive amounts of fuel, these are common signs that your turbocharger may need to be rebuilt. Don't waste your money online with the cheapest options where you get no support after the sale. Test Calibration has been selling and servicing diesel, turbochargers, and fuel injection systems since 1976. No matter if you're running a diesel in your boat, tractor, or truck, Test Calibration can help you. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibratindieselandturbo.com. All right, Captain Bobby. That's another great Alabama saltwater fishing report, man. That's some good information.
Good information. One of the things is, and I probably have said this when I've been on before hosting with you, is you got to read between the lines or listen between the lines. Because, when we get we start talking about what you learned, if you really listen closely, there's some interesting stuff going on. Patric, for example, is talking about fishing when he started talking about fishing, the clarity, or in his case, lack thereof clarity, and I'm old timey trout fisherman. We were, we used to say, if you couldn't see the lower unit, it was too muddy to fish. And we would, and I've learned since then that there's ways to overcome that. But the point being, he was talking about fishing a few inches of water clarity and still catching a bunch of fish, so that was one of the things I really picked up from him, that, if you're listening to things like this, and he just kind of casually mentioned it as he was going into the great report he had, about how little clarity he had, but he was still whacking the fish, And then the other thing, when Dusty was talking about on the Hey Cap question, when the fella asked him, Phil S. asked him about the time of the day to catch flounder. I'm thinking the first thing, am I thinking to myself, is exactly what Dusty said. When you got an ambush feeder, he's going to feed us, especially if you're fishing the beach with no ambient light. He's going to be trying to feed as soon as he can see something. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm not even a beach fisherman, but I'm thinking, well, an ambush feeder is always going to be feeding as soon as so first light, super early. Yeah. So I'm saying first light is going to be the best. So I'm thinking to myself, and he touched on that, but he also said, you got to get there before the people start swimming. And I'm going like, I never even thought of it.
Yeah, we talk about boat traffic.
Well, I think in terms of boat traffic, but I'm going like, gosh, so he's got like a double whammy there. He wants to be there, when they're, which from a fishing standpoint, we know, right? But the other thing, I would have never even thought of that.
You gotta combat it.
So the whole point of the thing is you really have to listen to some of this. You can pick up some real subtle things that are very, very important that guys like Dusty and Patric that'll throw out there, because they don't even think about it. They've already dialed in on this so well that they don't even think about it. But if you listen to those little subtle
just casually
things,
mentioned,
we all want to go like, what bait do we want to use, or where do I want to go, or whatever. That's the and very, very, very obviously very important aspects. But when you start throwing little subtle things like that in there.
And the more and more that I get to fish with you guys and just fish in general, it makes me a much better host. But like when I was asking Patric, he was fishing, and he'd whack 15 in a row, put the poles down. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why were those fish there? Can I go catch those fish? Not latitude and longitude numbers, but why were those fish there? Was it shell bottom? Was it X? So I just try and pick up on things all the time. And I catch multiple things after I listen to the show, after, our producer John sends it to me for approval. I catch things all the time that I'm like, oh, I didn't even hear him say that, because I was messing with the outline, or, you just never know, you get busy. But Yeah.
There's some great information on this. And I know I've said that before too. And it's really, really great information. And obviously that's, congratulations to you and Joe for starting this, but that's why you have so many listeners is the word's gotten out on this thing, and it's very educational. You can listen to it at your leisure, pick the parts you want to listen to. But there's a lot to learn, and you can really learn a lot. When I get a chance to be on here, when I listen to it, I'm going, man, that's some good stuff right there. You know?
And it always is with everyone. Everybody's, it cuts a learning curve. I mean,
it's
cut years off my learning curve going with you guys a few times and listening every week, just keeping my finger on the pulse,
Yep. It's good stuff. And it's timely stuff too. Doing it once a week like this, it's always good, timely information.
Changes day to day.
Man, I mean, tell me about it.
Much less week to week.
Yeah. Especially these transitional periods, these spring and fall to me is when you really have to pay attention to what's going on. You get this established wintertime deal or summertime deal. They're pretty well doing the same thing for several months, for a couple months. This time of year, man, it like you just said, it changes from one day to the next. It's amazing.
Like we saw from yesterday to
today. And you start throwing in issues, and not even just water temperature, but you start talking about river dunoff and salinity levels and things like that. That's a big part of the equation that you have to pay attention to when you're doing this during these transitional periods.
Especially if you only got one day a week.
That's right. Yeah. Which most of our listeners, I would think, probably have. That's the case.
If your wife lets you go on Saturday, you got to go.
That's
whether
right.
it's east
or
east,
actually,
south, north.
There's so many women fishing now. The husband may be letting the wife go.
Hey, I'm good with that too.
Yes,
I wish mine would like it that much for sure. Folks, this week's What'd You Learn is brought to us by Bucks Island. They have new pontoon boats, bass boats, bow riders, and aluminum boats for sale. They provide boat service on all kinds of boats, even if they weren't purchased from Bucks. Visit them at 4500 Highway 77 in Southside, Alabama, or give them a call at 256-442-2588. And also brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. But one of the things that is very predictable is the pricing at Daycool Heating and Air. They offer flat rate pricing and they don't charge for after hours calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always seems to act up whenever you need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been servicing Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app. They are license number AL07028. All right, folks. Captain Bobby, I really enjoyed you being my co-host this week. I'm sure.
Always my pleasure. And I sit here with the place where I sit when I come do this with you. I look at your clock all the time. It's just hard to believe how quick the time goes by.
I don't even look at it anymore.
I know, it's unbelievable.
Well, man, we enjoyed it. As always, love picking your brain. Captain Patric's a wealth of knowledge as well. He's got it. I love how analytical he is.
Yeah, he is. When we talk about that all the time too, he really, really picks it apart. He's good at that, man.
Yeah, for sure. Always good to hear from you. A wealth of knowledge as well. I'm sure your bookings are heating up well. If folks want to get up with Captain Bobby Abruscato and go fishing. Flounder fishing. You go flounder fishing?
Go flounder fishing. You probably won't do a lot of flounder catching. You probably won't do a lot of flounder catching, but I can take you flounder fishing.
That's right. Yeah. Well, no, man, if folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
The easiest way is my website, which is A-Team Fishing, all one word, A-Team Fishing. And then there's a contact us tab on there that has our phone number and or a form you can fill out and shoot it to us as easy.
So they get you to the boss lady.
It gets us to the boss lady. That's exactly.
Get you through the gateway.
She'll take care of you. She's gotten really good at it after almost 40 years of doing it. Right. So she's gotten good at it. She usually, if it comes to more than one question, she refers it to me.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm
That's
saying?
fair.
If it's I want to go on May 27th, she can take care of it,
Yeah.
But when it starts getting in tides and when's the best time,
right.
blah, blah, blah.
Let's talk
let
to
me get
Bobby.
the captain call you
That's
back.
right. That's right. I can relate to that relationship.
That's right.
Very well where I come from. So, all right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Again, just text the word fishing to 314-665-1767. Subscribe to our email list, and we'll send you the new show each week. We'll see y'all next week. You guys keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by Hilton's Offshore Charts, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com. And also brought to you by KillerDock. KillerDock uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. KillerDock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdock.com to see more. And also brought to you by Fishbites. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits as well as tackle at fishbites.com. And also brought to you by the Flora Bama Fishing Rodeo, the annual fishing tournament held at Flora Bama Old River Grill. The Fishing Rodeo focuses on bringing families together for a fun weekend of fishing on the Gulf Coast. This event is June 11th and 12th, 2021.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. And also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Enjoy less stress knowing you have reduced your risk for damage with Foster Contracting. Check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-447-2978.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA at nationalland.com.